into well, we'll see for 2022.
Maybe Carlos
We have to see
Beltran
how the CBA works out. We may not even
have a
have
season.
baseball by then. No, that's a factor you have to take into account as well. But I definitely think Boone has a shorter leash. I would say both are on the hot seat, but I think Rojas probably has more of a chance to finish out the season unless the Mets are bad. If they are bad by the end of May or June and they're maybe 10 games under 500 and they're really, really not competing like they expected, then I could see a change being made.
Here's some guys I'd like to see give it a chance to be Mets manager. Buck Showalter, Bobby Valentine, Joe McEwing, Robin Ventura, and I think I'd like to also see did I say Willie Randolph? I'd like to see them give him a shot. And I think
who I think would be a really great
Carlos Beltran. He'd be great.
Who I honestly, truthfully believe would be an amazing fit for the Mets, and you're gonna laugh. You're really, really gonna laugh. Buck Showalter.
That's the first guy I said, so I think that's fine.
I think, I'm agreeing with you, but I mean that in all sincerity. I really think Buck would be a great fit, and I thought Girardi would have been a tremendous fit for that team too.
AJ Hinch would have been good.
Phillies, right? But I think Buck Showalter is a good baseball mind. A lot of people point back to that playoff game when the Orioles played the Blue Jays in the wild card game and his decision not to go to Britain. And a lot of people look back on his tenure and his career so far and point to that one moment. But I think that's truthfully unfair. I think Buck is a really good manager who's kind of had some luck on some things go against him. But ultimately, I think he would be a good fit. I think Beltran would be a great fit there. I don't know why they ever I know why they dialed back from going in that direction, but from everything that I heard when Beltran was a Yankee, a lot of people were incredibly high on him. Incredibly, incredibly high on him. I think he would be a great fit for the Mets. I don't think they should have ever walked back that decision. I think they should have just full speed ahead went with that and lived with whatever kind of PR headache would have come in the moment. So I think Beltran would be a great fit.
Joe McEwing needs to get an opportunity somewhere. Robin Ventura, he could come back and and manage somewhere else in the league. Those are the guys I'd be looking at. And of course, Willie Randolph got done so wrong there by the Mets back in the day, and Bobby Valentine, one of the greatest managers in Mets history. And if Tony La Russa off a DUI can get hired at 77 years old, why can't Bobby Valentine, who is doing a great job at Sacred Heart University as the athletic director, be hired at the age of 70?
Right. I'm trying to think of other candidates who I think would be a good fit. But now this is weird because, again, where we think both guys are on the hot seat, the same guys that you're talking about for the Mets, I would be thinking about for the Yankees.
Yankees are going to probably stay internal as far as the yes booth. So I think John Flaherty or David Cohen would be the people they look at.
I think David Cohen would sincerely be a terrific manager. So obviously most people in New York, especially Yankee fans, we're kind of 50-50 on the yes broadcast. I've never really truthfully loved it, but what I will say is I like listening to Paul O'Neill and I like listening to Flaherty and I like listening to Cohen. I think the players are probably better in the booth than listening to Michael Kay. I think the Mets broadcast is infinitely better. I think just the production is a lot better. But that
better
said,
chemistry, same guys all year. Yankees have this rotating cast of characters.
We've seen, I would say the last 3 years or so, we've seen David Cohen kind of chime in a little more, especially when it comes to the analytics side, analyzing Yankees games. He's made some indications that he would be open to the possibility of becoming a manager if the right opportunity presented itself. And I think if the Yankees move on from Boone, they would look internally to possibly see what Cohen what they would gauge his interest to see how much he would want the job. And I think Cohen would be a terrific fit on the Mets too. Obviously, he played for both organizations, has respect for both organizations. I'm sure both organizations have respect for him. I think he'd be a good fit on both teams.
Time will tell. I think Rojas and Boone probably are both going to manage the full 2021 season. So will be plenty of time for us to discuss this. But you did mention Michael Kay. Uh, how worried do you think he is that he's going to be losing some ratings in his afternoon drive slot?
Tell your friends, tell your friends. Craig Carton back on WFAN. Carton and Roberts in the midday. Uh, Very odd pairing, but again, with Joe Beningo retiring, obviously they needed something for Evan to do. Uh, so I've listened to them so far. I think the show's been really solid. I think they definitely do. I would say that the biggest flaw of the show so far is they both seem like they just always want to talk, and Carton is more of just like a personality, whereas Evan is more of the guy who's going to give you the meat and potatoes, and he's going to be the one who talks about sports more, and he's going to give you more of the analysis and uh, more of like more stuff pertaining to like the in-game stuff and that. While Carton is just more or less going to spout and give you whatever he's thinking, pure personality. But I think it's been good so far. I think he got off on the right foot, I think, with the whole apology and attempting to try to just at least be as open and sincere about the opportunity to come back as he possibly can. Because, remember, a lot of people in his shoes, unfortunately, some people just don't get second chances, right? And he's had the opportunity with WFAN to get the second chance, and I think he's going to try to make the most of it. So definitely willing to hear it out. So far, it's been good. I put it on a couple of times driving over the course of the last week or so. I want to see your thoughts on it. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me?
I'm interested to know what happened behind the scenes. If Ernie, who was the longtime producer of Joe and Evan, and Dove, the board operator, if they were fired, I don't know. I mean, we hate to see that as a casualty there. Chris McMonagle, who of course was Mac and Mons, Mike Francesa's longtime producer and board op, he moves from the midday show with Moose and Maggie back up to the afternoon drive. And Tommy Lugara, who's been there as a long time fill-in guy on the boards and producer, is the producer of the show. I like that the two of them are getting the chance to talk a lot. And that's something I like to see. McMonagle does a great job on Saturday nights as well on the fan. But we'll see how the dynamic goes. So far, I sense Evan's a little nervous to be working with Craig, and doesn't want to step on his toes. But he has defended himself, so that's what you want to see. And they had their first little argument. Craig was saying how great it was to watch the Jets on Monday Night Football be competitive and then blow the game. And Evan's like, I hate it. Why do you want to see that? Let's see them get blown out. So it's an interesting dynamic there, but I think ultimately it's going to work. And, I guess the fall books are going to be a little muddled because this is midway through the fall books, but
right.
I guess time will tell, and we'll see where everything stands come May, April, and it's embarrassing when you're watching the Michael Kay show, and Peter Rosenberg's getting paid all this money, and they start talking about the end of the Chargers and Raiders game. He's like, "What happened? I didn't see it." I mean,
right?
How could you
gotta know?
How could you not know that?
I know you have to know everything that happens. If you're going to do a sports show in the midday time slot in New York. But yeah, no, I would agree with your assessment of that so far. I think Evan definitely has some room to open up a little more and be more of himself, and I think that'll come out in the coming weeks.
I did like that they were doing chemistry. I did like that on the first show they were doing some Roman Reigns talk.
Yeah, they were doing the tribal chief. But yeah, Carton is he's an absolutely extravagant personality. And I mean, he really booms when you're listening to him on the radio. He's just an incredible presence. And so I think what we saw from Boomer and Carton, Boomer kind of has that similar persona to him. And in terms of being a former player and having, if there's any one particular athlete turned media personality in New York who really truthfully I believe has a pulse of the city, not just on a smaller scale, but I think on a big scale when it comes to every team, I think it's Boomer Esiason. And in that sense, obviously, him and Carton were absolutely perfect for each other, right? So it's definitely going to be a little bit of an adjustment with Evan. But again, I like what I've heard so far. I think there's definitely room for improvement. And I think over the course of the next couple of weeks, next couple of months, all you're going to do between them is see the chemistry build up better and better.
Right. They
Uh,
had a good time interviewing Sandy Alderson, though. That was for
they
sure.
did. They did. They've definitely had some good interviews so far.
But
Uh,
you know what? It's interesting because like the Carton and Boomer and Carton caller was so different than the Evan and the Joe and Evan caller. So it'll be
right.
interesting to see like who's calling up and who's going to direct their question to who because it's just a totally different dynamic in the type of show that they're doing.
Right. Yeah. I think Boomer and Esiason, the show was designed for the tired, driving on your way to work every person. Whereas I feel like the midday slot has to be more all encompassing. So now not only are you targeting the people who are driving home from work, the people who are still at work, but you're also targeting people who are at home, people who are monitoring what's happening in the day in sports. Obviously, you're doing more interviews and you're looking to book more players, more coaches, more managers, more other media personalities. The variety that comes and the responsibility that comes from taking on that time slot is huge. It's huge,
Right.
and they've honestly they've had a lot of difficulty replacing Francesa in that time slot. It's not a secret. Uh, Obviously, they called Mike back for
I
a
was
period
thinking
of
I was
time.
thinking they should maybe bring Mike back for middays now. What do you think?
I don't know if he wants to do it. I
So,
think I
and
think
the
it's
other thing I was
just
thinking was like, all right, so obviously after the Mets win the World Series next year, I hope Joe
oh,
Beningo calls in to Evan and Carton. I think that would be a great spot. Or if the Jets go in 16, they gotta have Joe call in. But Joe, he might actually be doing some shows in the new year, so he's still under contract, which I think is great. Uh, my other question is like, you know, Mike, he would call in to Joe and Evan if he had breaking news or just to talk.
right.
What's the show that he would call into now? Because he ain't calling into Craig and he ain't calling into Boomer and Greg Giannotti. So is he calling into
Right.
Steve Summers? Is he gonna
He's gonna
is he gonna call into Moose and Maggie? What's he gonna do?
Moose and Mag. I think he'll call into Moose and Maggie because I think his relationship with Moose overall is pretty good. I don't think he has any really bad relationships at the fan anymore.
He
Obviously,
has a great relationship with Evan,
he does. He always had a good relationship with Evan, and
and
I
that's
believe
what he said when he called it on Joe's last show. He's like, people don't realize how close Evan and I are.
right. Yeah, I think a lot of stuff with like the rivalries with Mike. I think I would say a couple of years ago, they were well warranted. But I think now at this point, with everything that WFAN has been through over the past 2 years or so, I think his relationships with all the people that work at the station are probably much closer. And I mean, we talked about this on a previous podcast. When everything happened with Carton and he started having all the legal problems, one of the very first people who reached out to them, who to offer his support and everything regarding everything that was happening was Mike, right? So while I don't think Carton necessarily likes Mike,
He
while
gets
I
to
don't
do his
think he
show for the
necessarily
Mike Francesa studio.
right, while
And
I
did
don't
you
think
know I can't take that commercial. Cody live from the Town Fair Tire Studio. Nobody, 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 and I mean nobody can be Town Fair Tire. Absolutely nobody. If I have to, I just nonstop that read. It's nauseating sometimes, but that's radio for you. I
that is
love that,
radio.
and nobody did better reads than Joe Beningo though. Tell him Joe B sent down Berto's Clam House, and all those great commercials, which are amazing. But you never had any like coffee reads or anything, but Carton is well known for drinking massive like Starbucks drinks during his shows. But
Yep,
Bill Belichick, Joe, he hates coffee
he does.
with a burning passion, which I think is great because I'm the same way. He did an interview on WEEI, and I think it was the Ordway, Merloni, and Faria show. And he said, look, I mean, I understand I'm probably missing it, but I just don't like coffee. I can't stand the smell of coffee. Same here, Bill. I don't like the coffee cream, ice cream, and I like every sweet that has ever made, and I like every sweet that has ever been made, but that's not one of them. I don't like coffee flavored anything. I just don't have the taste for